that can claim total and absolute success with respect to each of them. It's very difficult to repair each and every victim in proportion to the harm that they have suffered. It is very difficult to bring to justice each and every perpetrator of a human rights abuse and to punish him in exact proportion to the harm that they have suffered. It is very difficult to disclose the whereabouts of each and every victim and the name of each and every collaborator in the violence that took place. And it is very difficult to reform all the institutions that either allowed or collaborated in the commission of violations in the short run. Nevertheless, collectively, as a group, when the efforts are coordinated with one another, they can lend each other some support and increase their effectiveness, as we know empirically that has happened in different parts of the world. The measures work better when they are not conceived as isolated initiatives, but rather when they are conceived as parts of a comprehensive policy. Truth, justice, reparations, and institutional reforms more effectively provide redress and satisfy the claims of justice of victims and of society as a whole when they work together. The second reason, which is the one that I would like to focus on, is more conceptual. I think that it makes sense to think of links between truth-telling efforts, prosecutorial efforts, reparations efforts, and institutional reform initiatives, because they share some fundamental aims. And this is what I would like to concentrate on. Arguably, the four sets of measures share the following objectives. First, to provide some recognition to victims, and not only in their character as victims, but particularly in their character as rights holders. We want to make sure, in the wake of conflict and massive human rights violations, that the idea of rights is taken seriously. But this is not simply achieved rhetorically, it can only be achieved through practice. And the four initiatives that constitute a transitional justice policy arguably serve that end. They recognize the importance, the significance of rights. Secondly, arguably, the four sets of measures share the aim of trying to restore trust in circumstances in which trust is a very, very scarce resource. Most countries that emerge from conflict or that have a history of human rights violations, not surprisingly, are very, very low trust environments. There is very low degree of trust between individuals, between different groups, and between them and the institutions of the state. Sometimes mistrust is even manifested within the institutions of the state, so that there is poor communication between different arms of government, difficulties in coordinating governmental action. So mistrust is pervasive in post-conflict and post-authoritarian situations, and this is one of the things that transitional justice seeks to overcome. Third, the four sets of measures arguably strengthen the rule of law. Once again, in post-conflict situations and in situations in which there have been massive violations of rights, it is perfectly common to see very low degrees of confidence in the rule of law, judicial systems that for many different reasons do not count with the confidence of citizens, are seen by some to be biased, are objectively very slow in resolving cases. They renounce their jurisdiction in some areas, both geographical and thematical, where they ought to exercise their jurisdiction. And generally speaking, it is seen that justice is of concern for some, but not for others. That the full weight of the law is discharged on some, but not on others. And again, transitional justice seeks to overcome that condition and to make a contribution to the general effectiveness of law, and particularly to the equality of citizens in the eyes of the law. And finally, I think that it is possible to argue that each of the measures that make up a transitional justice policy seek to contribute to a certain sense of social integration, that the restoration of trust, the strengthening of the rule of law, the recognition of the importance of the notion of rights, all enable people to deal with one another on a different footing, and that in itself makes a contribution to social reconciliation. That once the measures are implemented, there is a better reason for citizens, even citizens that belong to different communities, to feel at home in their country.